Hello everyone and welcome to our channel, Dr. Hamzah Alkinani. This is the monthly political dialogue. Welcome to a new interesting interview today with a very interesting guest. I am honored today to introduce the distinguished political philosopher from Russia, Professor Aleksandr Dugin. Thank you so much, Professor Dugin, for being in our show today.
Thank you for inviting me.
We will start this conversation with a summary of our guest theory. Then we will talk about Russian and Ukraine war, Gaza's war, Russian policy in the Middle East, China, Taiwan. Then we will go to our main topic, questions related to the Middle East. At the outset, we would like to start from this question and we will go from there. So today we have a distinguished philosopher, and the job of philosophers in large part is to define values. What is the most important in life? What should we be striving for? What kind of people do we need to be to achieve the best things in life, individually and socially? And as we know, the ideals that philosophers have enunciated over the course of modern history have had a huge influence on motivating, in some cases, wonderful, free, liberating, progressive civilizations, but also dark, barbaric civilizations, such as Karl Marx in the Marxist, Friedrich Nietzsche with the Nazi, and the fascist in Italy, Mussolini and his co-writer Gentili were Hegelian philosophers. And for our time, we have Aleksandr Dugin, who is one of the most famous contemporary philosophers in the world, and he is also the advisor of President Vladimir Putin. He published a book in 2009 called The Fourth Political Theory. So, Professor Dugin, we would like to start our interview today with two questions. First, what are the original ideas of the fourth political theory? Also, Mr. Dugin, some political critics asking, based on your previous article that you wrote after the Soviet Union collapse, called Fascism, Borderless and Red, 1997, if Professor Dugin fascist, new Marxist, or what? Can you answer these two questions, please? Especially respond to the political critics.
So, exactly, I considering the political logic, political meaning of the 20th century, I came to the obvious conclusion that only three political ideologies dominated all the century: liberalism, communism, and fascism. And all three of them managed to create some powerful infrastructure, not only one state, but the group of the states consolidating by these ideas. And to the end of the 20th century, it was obvious that liberalism has triumphed over its alternatives, over fascism together with communism, and after that, to the end of the Cold War, there was ideological victory of liberalism over communism, because after the fall of the Soviet Union, the rests of Soviet Union accepted exactly liberal ideology. So I'm starting with this affirmation that is purely trivial, I would say. That nothing special. It is just a direct observation of the logic of 20th century. But when I started to think on liberalism, I came to the conclusion that I reject this ideology. I don't agree from my philosophical point with no affirmations of liberalism. I am against individualistic understanding of human nature, against technological progress, against so-called LGBT strategy. I'm in favor of tradition. So I was confronted with the victory of the idea, liberal idea, that I rejected, I hated. I didn't see anything that with what I would agree, including with their understanding of freedom, because in my opinion, freedom is a freedom for some creation. It is freedom for something, and not the liberty as liberal ideologists affirm, liberty from. So it is purely negative liberty defended by liberalism. So I rejected open society, liberal democracy, but at the same time, so you could call me, that would be just illiberal. I am against liberalism in old and new forms, from the beginning, from the sources until present situation. But I came to the conclusion that neither communism nor fascism are not adequate ideologies and philosophical basis to fight against liberalism. So they were sub-products of the Western political modernity, and precisely this political Western modernity I reject. In that sense, you could not qualify myself neither communist nor fascist, because being illiberal, being anti-liberal, I am at the same time anti-fascist and anti-communist. In that sense, I reject in generally political Western modernities with all three political theories, and that is the basis or foundation of fourth political theory. So I discovered that in order to fight liberalism, we should not support anymore on socialism or on fascism or nationalism or combination of two or some other versions of sub ideologies, left or right. So we need to imagine or create or discover completely different political ideology that I am I'm calling fourth political theory, that should give the liberalism the fight, the global fight, but basing not on communism or fascism, but on totally different, not Western, not modern principles. It could be tradition, it could be religion, it could be postmodernity, it could be pre-modern, it could be postmodern, it could be some original and not existing yet political platform that approximatively I'm calling fourth political theory. And I have written the book on that, and 2 books and more text. And this book is translated in almost in many languages, in Arabic, in all European languages, in Turkish, in Hindi, in Farsi, in almost all. I think that the people in the world understand my position, my take, because my take is precisely what I'm saying. I don't want to hide some communism, fascism, or something other behind forced political theory. I don't insist on dogmatism. There is no dogmatism in forced political theory. I'm just trying to overcome the narrow limits of Western modern mentality, and I want to find the new and the best way to fight against liberalism and to affirm alternative values that, for myself, from my Russian perspective, Russian tradition, Christianity, Orthodox Christianity, same family, marriage between men and women, children, and all kind of spiritual tradition of my ancestors, but combining this principle with criticism of Western modernity from other civilizations. So I am ready to borrow some elements from Islamic culture in order to criticize Western modernity, from Chinese tradition, from Indian traditionalism, from African anti-colonialism. That is very interesting. So that is my position. You could not reduce. Liberals cannot accept the challenge. They are very, very sensible to that, and they could not stand or promote or create some arguments to fight with forced political theory. They try at any price to reduce my position to old illiberalism, to communism or to fascism. But I reject explicitly fascism and communism. And I am inviting liberal thinkers to speak about my main thesis about forced political theory and necessity to overcome and to have alternative to liberalism, to search alternative to liberalism, coming to pre-modern societies and systems of value in Russia, in Islamic world, in Europe itself, because before political modernity was installed in the West, there was the alternative vision. For example, in Middle Ages, based on religious principles, based on totally different system of values, classical values from Greek and Romans, on Roman right, on Platonic and Aristotelian tradition, totally different world vision. And that word, Western pre-modern world vision, is very valuable for myself. I find there as well many points of inspiration. So that is more or less forced political theory. I don't pretend that all Russians agree with that. So my views are known in Russia. I have published more than 70 books on different subjects, but forced political theory is one of most important publication among other texts on geopolitics, on sociology, on anthropology, on history of civilization. 24 volumes I have written on different civilizations. I have covered all civilizations, but I think that you could not reduce explicitly anti-fascist, anti-communist, and anti-liberal positions of mine to communism or to fascism. It's totally against logic. Anybody who knows, who has written my books, could not find any words in favor of defense of nationalism. I am a radical critic of nationalism, because nationalism is the part of the political modernity of the West that I reject.
Professor Dugin, let's talk about Gaza and the humanitarian crisis over there. The question is October 7 the day that the slogans of democracy, human rights, and Western ideals death? Does Russia work to be an alternative ally to the Muslims and Arab governments and try to apply its ideology on the Arab nation? Can you talk to that, please?
First of all, I think that now we are living in the transition between unipolarity, when liberalism was considered to be unique system of values, universal system of values imposed on all humanity, and all who disagree with the liberal principles were considered to be rogue state or authoritarian state. So the West blamed Russia, blamed Iran, blamed North Korea to be and partly China to be outsiders, to be improper political system. But when on October 7 there was the Hamas attack against Israel, and when Israel has responded after that with a kind of genocide of Palestinian people as revenge, and liberal West, for whom the human life, human rights should be logically, theoretically very, very dear, started to support only Israel in that conflict. Nothing of balance, nothing of understanding of Palestinian suffering. So that, in my opinion, that was a kind of the end of pretension to be judges, to be independent. The West has chosen only one path in the conflict, without consideration of the motivation of the Palestinians, their suffering, the killing of the children, of the women, and so on, as exactly as unipolar West has done in the Ukrainian conflict. They were from the beginning on one side, without entering in consideration of Russia. So we have now two front lines. First front line, that is conflict between unipolar West and multipolar Russia, and second front line between unipolar West, the same, exactly the same. Macron, Biden, Soros, all are on the same side against this time against Arabs, against Muslims, against Palestinians, without making difference between the victim and the terrorist group who exist. I agree in Gaza, but generally this conflict now, it is not the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, between Jews and Arabs. It is the new front of unipolarity against multipolarity, and this time the attack is against Islamic population. I don't say that Russia could solve the situation. No, we have our own war, but we lead in Ukraine the war not against Ukrainians, but against the collective West. It is just territory. And Gaza now is just territory between the fight between world Islam, Islamic, as I understand, geopolitical situation, and the globalist unipolar West. In that sense, 2 billion of Muslims and great Russian state are objectively, naturally, organically on the same side in the conflicts, because we want to defend our sovereignty, to defend our pole of multipolarity, Russian pole. We don't want to impose our understanding, our values, our tradition on all the rest of the humanity, but we need and we fight for preservation of our identity, and that is spiritual fight in our case. I think that Islam and all the Islam, not only Arabs, but Turks, Iranians, Pakistanis, Indonesians, all Islamic society has received the blow, the challenge from the collective West, and now is hesitating to react, or how to react, or not to react at all. And we were in the very similar position on the eve of the beginning of the special military operation. We could as well theoretically sacrifice Russian population to the pro-Western Ukrainian Nazi government, Russian population of the east of Ukraine, but Putin has decided to not to do that. So now the leaders of Muslim world are in the same position, but Putin has made his decision, and we Russians, we have supported him, and now it is time to respond to the Islamic world. And I presume that response can be different in one country, in other country. I think that some leaders of Islamic world would prefer, by economical interest or by some other consideration, for example, disagreement with Hamas. But this time, in my opinion, this time we are not dealing with just Hamas. It is about Islam. It is about Palestinians. It is about the destiny and the suffering of the innocent people of Arab descent. They are killed because they are Arabs, because they are Palestinians. So that time when Israel has shown its racist aspect, and but it could be isolated case, not so important, but the West has supported it against all its pretension to be anti-racist, to be totally devoted to the human rights, but that is totally collapse of the moral dignity of the West. The masks are off, and I think now the Islamic world now thinks in that moment is hesitating around this decision. And I think that Islamic leaders should take in consideration as well the society, Islamic society, because maybe on the level of the states, relations with the West are very dear and important, but it goes against the morality of the Muslim society, as long as I understand. So that is very difficult and complicated situation. And I think that now Islamic countries are passing the test, the test of its sovereign of unity, solidarity inside of Islamic world, because Russia is a civilization state, and Islam is civilization, very particular civilization, but not state, because there are many states in Islamic world. So either Islamic world would find a way to organize in this critical moment its unity and to fight back against this attack of the West, or I think it will lose some credibility, maybe for certain time, not for too long. So because there will be for sure some events that will follow in Islamic countries, maybe a new wave of turmoils and something like that. But in any case, I think that is a crucial moment for Islam in that transition, because if Islamic pole would want to affirm its sovereignty geopolitically, that's the time. That is moment. That is the moment, because I think Israel will not stop to kill Palestinians in Gaza. Now situation is catastrophic. The real catastrophe there, humanitarian, human, military. There is no food, there is no water. So the hospitals are blown up. So it's something that incredibly severe revenge and punishment on the balance of genocide of Palestinians. And but you should not take responsibility on Russia. Russia is just the decisive member of multipolar club, and Russia now fights for multipolarity in Ukraine, and logically would help to Arab world as well, to Islamic world as well, but couldn't. It is just help. It's not. It could not be the leader of this fight. It's up to Islamic countries to decide what to do next. And I think, but I'm sure that now Muslims in all the world understand much better the war in Ukraine, much better, because you are now in very similar position.
Professor Dugin, since you mentioned that the battle in Gaza is between the West and the Muslims nation, one of your previous posts, you wrote, and I quote, "In these tragic days and after cruel bombing by Israeli-Palestinian hospital in Gaza, the final loss of American control over Islamic world is total and irreversible. Now the globalists have to fight simultaneously Russia, China, and Islamic world. If that is not World War III, what the hell it is?" The question is, why do you believe that the Islamic world will be in the side of Russia and China fighting the West? How you can respond to the observers? They said most of the Islamic government are already allies and the side of Western government against Russia and China and their interests after the Russian military activities in Syria. How do you respond?
So, first of all, I think that is not true that Islamic world is fighting with the West against Russia and Ukraine. No such presence, no such signs we have discovered and observed in Ukraine.
I said the government.
No, there is few Islamic countries openly supports Russia. In that I agree, except maybe Iran, Syria, Iraq partly. So, but at the same time, we see that the most of the governments of the Islamic countries are rather neutral in this conflict. They are not in favor of Russia, but they are not too much in favor of Ukraine. They stay neutral, including Erdogan, for example, the chief of Turkey, the member of NATO. He has his special relations with Ukraine and helps a bit to Ukrainians, but at the same time he is dealing with Russia, so he has good relations with Putin and it's balanced position. So I didn't remark, I don't know, maybe I'm misinformed about massive engagement of the Islamic countries in favor of Ukraine. There is not engagement in favor of Russia, and but engagement in favor of the Ukraine. Nothing of this sort I could observe in the reality check. So, but at the same time, I think that Islamic values, Islamic civilization, Sharia, the principles of family, the principles of faith in God, these sacred values, the writings, Quran, and all other values of Islamic world are totally incompatible with modern liberal West. And the main intellectuals of Islamic world, starting from Shia to the Sunni to Sufi to Salafi, any kind, to Muslim Brotherhood from the beginning. So Wahhabi, Saudi Arabia, totality of Islamic intellectuals recognize this total incompatibility between Islam as the way of life, as a way of political creativity or economy with the Western standards. So the conflict between Islam and the West is inscribed in the logic of international relations. But the West managed to come down to bypass at the time Islamic leaders who entered into some alliance with the West in economy, in some diplomatic aspects, and so on. And the West tried to dismantle Islamic unity, to divide Islamic world, playing on the contradictions that for sure really exist between different Islamic regimes. But what is important? So the Israeli problem was the center of that, and the main politics during some decennies of American policy in the Middle East was precisely how to normalize relations between Israel and Islamic world and supporting some time Israeli radicalism or two-state solution in favor of Palestine. So the West played both, trying to pretend to be beyond the line of wrong. So not pretending to be only on the side of Israel. And that was the tactic, the main tactic. And from time to time, it was a successful tactic of the West, in order to keep quiet Islam leaders and to intervene and provoke bloody revolutions and killing of civilians in Iraq, in Syria, in Libya, and elsewhere, and Afghanistan. So that was the very cynic policy. But now, when United States today is only on the side of Israel committing so many crimes in Gaza, all that strategy is broken apart. It is they could not follow do the same. Nobody will believe them. So there will be reaction inside of Islamic world, and I am almost sure that sooner or later Islam will consider how to defend its civilizational roots, its identity, its values, its system, its religion, or in the term of multipolarity, because it logically cannot associate itself with the civilization that is totally contrary to any Islamic rule, any principle of Sharia or it is quite impossible. Russia doesn't want, for example, or China or other country doesn't want to impose on Islamic society some exterior rules or norms. We respect you as you are. We have different traditions, different religions, but we respect each other. And the West respect only itself and try to in the racist way, try to impose its own values on everybody. That is the difference between unipolarity and multipolarity. It is not the question to exchange, for example, American domination on Russian domination. There is not equivalent exchange because we don't propose, we don't suggest any kind of ideological dominance. We have no universal ideology. We have ideology for us. It is based on Christianity, on Orthodox Christianity, and we suggest multipolar world system because it will be just, it will be really balanced and based on the respect of differences. And we are strictly committed to the cause of multipolarity, and that doesn't mean that you need to accept Russian strategy or Russian values or Chinese values. So you should, in order to be multipolar, Islamic world should follow Islam and nothing else. That is the main key to understand what multipolarity means.
What about Syria?
So I think that the question of Syria, Russia has chosen to support Bashar Assad and his regime in order not to let the American occupy the territory. So I think now that it's not so important on global scale. For example, you understand better as anybody else that there are contradictions between Shia and Sunni, but both Iran and Saudi Arabia have managed together to overcome some contradictions. So you could insist on the differences, but you could overcome them in order to find the common platform. I think that is a time, that is a moment, not to look in the past, but try to overcome contradiction between different fractions of Syrian society in order to restore the unity and fight together against common enemy. Because for Bashar Assad and for the majority of the Islamic fighters who are against him, the main enemy is the West. The West attacking Gaza, attacking Muslims and Arabs, because Syria is populated by Arabs as Palestine. That is the same people. There are some political contradictions between Hamas and Fatah, between Bashar al-Assad and opposition, but there are Islamic identity that is common denominator, that is Arab identity, Islamic identity. So I think that now it's time to rethink on the new platform, the Islamic Unity, because Salafis, they has proposed, as long as I understand, a very reducing kind of Islamic identity, basing on of the simplest set of positions, and they try to impose that on everybody in the Islamic world, with no differences between Shia, Sunni, for mazhabs and other cultural identity, and that was wrong. That was destruction of the identities. But now we need. But they had something positive. They tried to unify Islamic world, and that is very, very decent and very good idea. But I think now, in order to make a shift from the Islamic civilization with different, disorientated, fragmented countries into Islamic pole as the subject of the global politics, you need to find some new model of unity, and I think it's up to you. We could not here to be judges. We don't pretend. It is up to you. It is inner problem of Islam. The only thing that I am sure of, that is necessity. You can accept that, you can put it aside, but necessity, geopolitical necessity, sooner or later will come to you at urgence. So that there will be the moment when this unity will be really urgent and irreversible and indispensable.
Professor Dugin, let's talk about the war in Ukraine. Is Russia satisfied with the results so far? Do you believe this war is the war of attrition? Do you believe that one of the goals of the Ukraine war is to exhaust Russia militarily and economically?
Yes, West, one of the goals of this war was to exhaust Russia economically, militarily, politically, and to make it weak, to stop its growing influence on other parts of the world, first of all on Europe. I think that the West has reached some of these goals. So it is the West didn't destroy our economy, not at all. They didn't destroy our society. They didn't disrupt our social system. They didn't they didn't provoke inner protests, nothing of the sort. So it didn't impose on us a military defeat. So I think some goals, but we are isolated partly from the West, at least. But we continue the relations with China, with India, with Islamic world, with Africa, with Latin America. We are not so lonely as it could appear. So we are part of the BRICS. Humanity is not just the West. It is much broader. So partly the West has reached, nevertheless, its goal. I'm not very happy with how the war is evolving, because we are fighting, it seems now, not against Ukrainian army, but against NATO, because the West supplies all Ukrainian army, so with weapons, with spy information, intelligence, and that is the fight against 52 countries that are allies of the United States and who are under its control. It's not easy to fight alone against such coalition that is behind Ukraine. Ukraine is just proxy for global NATO system, and NATO, it is NATO war. Properly, and it seems to be more difficult than we presumed. We presumed bold and urgent attack, assault, and after some weak definitive victory on Ukraine. That wasn't the case. We should recognize the things are not so easy, but we should say that Ukraine counter assault is over. It didn't make any result at all. So we conserved almost all line of defense. So now the balance of power is slightly changing in our side. That is not the Russian propaganda. I recognize the problems. I recognize the weak points in our position, but I think that we are preparing to make our own ground operation. It is not easy. I could not say how much it will take in the terms of time, but I think that Russia has resisted against the first blow, and we think that we rearranging, we are recomposing our social, economical, military, political structures inside of Russia in order to fight so long time as we will be obliged to fight. So we are ready to bring this war to the victory, the final victory. That is not just to have or liberated territory. Our vision is quite broader than that. So I think the war will last until the final defeat of Ukraine and liberation of this country from this Nazi pro-Western proxy regime.
Mr. Dugin, when we talk about the conflict between Ukraine and Russia and when it will end, we realize that there are several problems and major reasons that caused it, such as Ukraine's demand to join NATO, the Crimea, and others. But one of the important reasons why this war has not ended, because no deal to be had here, like what John Mearsheimer said. Nobody can figure out what the solution is to shutting this conflict down, and there are two reasons for that. One is the territorial issue. The Russians are not going to give back the territory they have conquered, and the Ukrainians want that territory back, and you cannot square that circle. Furthermore, the Russians want Ukraine to be a neutral state, and Ukraine wants a security guarantee, and that can only come from the West, and you cannot square that circle. So there is no deal to be had here. The question is, Mr. Dugin, can you please tell us, from your viewpoint, when the Russian-Ukraine war will end?
If we consider such radical contradiction that you have correctly described, I think the war could, and that under these conditions, could end only with an existence of Ukraine as independent state. Before that or outside of that, the war will continue. How long it will take, nobody could say, but contradiction is too big to begin, for example, to begin peace talk, because the peace talk we could begin when there is something that could maybe in some future to satisfy both parts, but we could not be satisfied not only with giving back the territories that now are part of Russian Federation, but we are not satisfied with the existence of pro-Western, pro-NATO Nazi regime in Ukraine. That was from the beginning the goal of the special military operation, clearly formulated by Mr. Putin: denazification and demilitarization of Ukraine. How we could have this goal, reach this goal? So we need totally different political regime or an existence of political entity such as Ukraine. So there will be maybe new entity, but we could not tolerate the existence of army, because this army was created to fight us. If they have weapon, they immediately start to shoot and shoot at our people and our goals and our towns of old Russia and new Russia. So we should finish with Ukraine as a military political entity. So that is the only solution accepted by us. But I think that Ukraine would be satisfied having all the territory, including Crimea, back to them. That is quite absolutely impossible, not for Putin, but for any Russian leader, for any future leader, any kind of leader. More democratic, less democratic, that is of no importance. So no Russian leaders could accept the giving back the territories. So I think that is nothing personal in that conflict, nothing about territory. It is about principle. So we could not tolerate Ukraine as it is now, politically striving to be part of NATO, promoting Russophobia, the hatred toward Russia, glorifying Nazi criminals. So all that is absolutely incompatible with Russia as independent and sovereign country. So we will continue to fight.
But Mr. Dugin, since you agreed that one of the Western government's goals of the Ukraine war is to exhaust Russia militarily and economically, why Russia haven't supported the resistance in Palestine to do the same thing against the Western interest in the Eastern Mediterranean? I'm asking.
It is not easy to respond. So Russia, I doubt that Russia and China would directly and openly support a resistance in Gaza and the Middle East, openly and declaring that. So obviously we are interested in the opening of this front against the same enemy, the common enemy, China and Russia. We are interested in that, but I don't think we are now capable and willing to be involved too much in that and directly in this conflict. So I think it. Logically and politically, it is the situation that attract attention of the enemy from Ukraine, from us, from Taiwan, but at the same time, it creates new of exaltation of the conflict in the Middle East, and somehow we will be involved, and logically we could be involved only on the side of resistance. But I think now it would be wrong to hope too much on that. It not be the main factor, for example, in the conflict. That is a war between the West and Islam, and it is up to Muslims themselves to win it and to lead it. So Russia could not be decisive factor in that. We are not in the bipolar world. We just are fighting to get rid of unipolar world and start to create, to construct, to build multipolar world. But we are not yet inside of multipolar world. We are approaching it. It is the very thin balance now between ending unipolarity and coming multipolarity. But unipolarity has not yet ended, and multipolarity has not yet fully begun. So that is a difficult situation, and you should not overestimate our capacities, but you should not underestimate our capacities. So now we are fighting our war. China is preparing to fight its war, and sooner or later it happens. It will happen. I mean, Taiwan, and maybe broader context of Pacific Ocean, where this region is full of American military bases, against whom they are orientated, against China. So sooner or later there will be as well conflicts, and I think that precisely this confrontation creates from the would-be poles, the real poles, the potential poles, actual poles. The pole, in order to be the pole, we need to pass some examen, some proof, some test, and we would prefer to do that in the peaceful way. If, for example, the West would say, okay, you are one civilization, we are other civilization, let's try to establish the contact between two. Trump, for example, Trump was more or less inclined to do that. So let us consider to be the partners or enemies, or now enemies, tomorrow partners, as in a realist theory of international relations. But globalist administration of Biden has totally different opinion. They are very radical. Either the world will be still unipolar, or or there will be the war, and we will destroy, as Americans said, we will destroy everybody who is on our way. That is the racist attitude, neo-colonial attitude, imperialist attitude, and we are against that. So we would prefer to build the multipolar world by peaceful means. But with the present administration of United States is quite impossible. Maybe next administration will change a bit the position, and that would almost immediately, I think, that would stop all the conflicts, or at least delay them or freeze them, because now we are dealing with a mad will of the globalists to save their hegemony and their unipolar world order. And that is exactly against this iron will, the mad will of this group of ultra-liberal, against these liberal fanatics who promote LGBT, transgenders, artificial intelligence, all clearly satanic elements they promote at any price, and they lead so many wars in order to save their global rule. So that is why I think that multipolarity is now under proof. So we need to prove that we can be the real poles, and it is not easy, as it is clear now. It is not so easy as maybe we imagine, we dream.
Mr. Dugin, since we mentioned the Eastern Mediterranean, one of the American, Israeli, and European strategic goals is to seize the gas of the Eastern Mediterranean and will be used as an alternative for Europe instead of Russian gas. What do you think of the American, Israeli, and European strategic goals and strategic moves in the region, such as the Eastern Mediterranean Security and Energy Partnership Act of 2019, Indian Corridor, Abraham Accords, the normalization? Are they considered as a strategic threat to Russian interests in the region or not? Can you talk to that, please?
Directly, absolutely. These accords are not strategical threat to Russia. Russia is not so much involved in the present conflict. I could not agree with the explanation of the gas or energy in general as the main factor in the situation of Gaza, because I think that Israel and United States and the West as a whole are losing their position, radically losing. They have almost lost their position in the Middle East. So nothing could compensate what they have already lost. Because now it is not just the gas; they possess this territory. Nobody prevented them to exploit the gas in the Eastern Mediterranean. The problem was the competition between Turkey and Greece and Egypt. So in France, so that was the normal issue that has had nothing to do with present conflict in Gaza. I think that the conflict in Gaza, it is political, it is maybe eschatological, because there is the special attitude of Israelis in front of Mosque Al-Aqsa, and that is very sensible for all Muslims, and that it is why Hamas has called their operation that costed to Palestinians so big price. So they called it Flood of Al-Aqsa. It is not just the name, it is a symbol. And I think that this conflict has a deeper root and roots than just economical balance. So I don't think that Russia is so much energetically or economically depending on this region. We had our own gas, our own oil. We have partners in the persons of China and India, and we are dealing with Africa. So we could manage without the West. So we have cut the ties with that, and I think finally the Arab or the Islamic world could organize its own prosperity without the dependence on the West. But there are the other elements, the other arguments that are much more serious than just economical question, and this war shows ourselves. So, for example, Israel is fighting not for economical resources, not for the political goals. That is the real hatred. That is revenge. That is biblical war of ethnical cleansing, of full extermination of the enemy. That is sacred war for them. They try to destroy all the people in Gaza, and they do it. And that is, I think, that it is against their interest, I would say, against Israeli interest, against American interest, but everybody is obliged to do what they do by some more important logic than just calculation of national interest. Mearsheimer, American expert, has remarked already 10 years ago, maybe more, that Israeli politics of United States goes against national interest of United States. United States are losing much more supporting Israel than not supporting Israel, for establishing relations with the Arab countries, for example. But that element still is crucial, as we see now, and we see in the world more often with each day that economical explanation or rational calculation of national interests are becoming secondary, maybe not so important factor as we presumed it should be, because economy is secondary. The other elements acquire the real meaning and openly begin to shape international politics, and between them race, religion, state, values, traditional values, culture. So that is a kind of the clash of civilization predicted by Huntington. And here, when the entire civilizations begin to move, that is something very serious, and economy becomes secondary. Economy could adapt and adjust itself to the war, to the conflict, to the peace. So economy is very, very flexible thing. It is a tool. You can become rich with buying or selling the weapons or the wheat or the water, everything. So energy. So we shouldn't overestimate the economy. Economy is secondary when civilizations begin to move, and that is precisely the case now in Middle East, in Gaza and Palestine.
Let us talk about China and Russian relations. They currently enjoy the best relations they have had since the late 1950s, although they have no formal alliance. The two countries do have an informal agreement to coordinate diplomatic and economic moves and build up an alliance against the United States and its allies. The question is, do you consider the relationship between China and Russia as an alliance?
I think Russia and China are allies because China and Russia, and above all, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, they share the common understanding of multipolarity. So both countries reject Western hegemony. Both countries are the civilizational states with huge possibility of inner growth. We Russians, we have many natural resources, huge territory, water, forests, and all kind of minerals, and all kind of natural richness. And China is very strong in economy, in production, in demography, in culture as well, and technology. So we are very complementary to each other, and our world visions are not the same, are very different, but they are not mutual exclusive. So we can accept Chinese vision of the world, and the Chinese could accept Russian values, not as something that they would share or we will share, but recognizing the right of each other to follow its own way. So we understand each other. We are allies, not yet military, but I think if the situation will develop at the same speed, sooner or later, something like military alliance would be concluded between our country. It is preparing step by step, not for declarations, for open annunciations of that, but we are going in that direction. We don't want each of us, neither China nor Russia, we don't want war, but we should think about our defense. And I think that sooner or later we will start to build common system of security. We suggested that, we proposed that for Europe as well. Putin, when he came to power, first of all, he has suggested the building common system of defense to Europe, and Europe preferred to align with United States and to defend herself against Russia, not with the help of Russia, but against Russia, and that was the beginning of the conflict. So, and with China, we are going in very good relations. We are allies, and we are allies with Iran, for sure. We're with North Korea, with Syria, and I think that and we are in very good relations with India. That is important, or with Latin America, or with Africa. That the importance and respect for Russia is growing in the world, is not declining. The only problem, I think, now, the problem is to win Ukrainian war. After that, nobody would doubt or challenge Russian status and Russian position as the great power among other great power in the context of multipolarity. But we are very grateful for those who are with us in a difficult time, and when the time will be better, and I hope it will, they will, the times. So I think that we have a long memory, and we will be very grateful and thankful for all who have supported us in the difficult time of our history. And that's I mean China, first of all, because the China is with us, and we feel it, and we count on China. It is our main economic partner, and thanks to China, our economy could progress and could develop and could stand not easy situation of sanctions.
Professor Dugin, last question for today. What's your political analysis of Russia's political future and the future of political and economic events in Ukraine, Africa, Latin America, Islamic world, and the Middle East, also in Taiwan? If you can explain to us, please.
So I think that I consider the political future of Russia with always strong position of Putin. Putin will be declared and chosen, elected new president. He has decided to participate in presidential elections. It is already decided. So I think, without any doubt, he will be our next president. And I think that with him, Russia will be strong and consequent, and will have new victories. I consider Russian future with some optimism, notwithstanding the problem we have. I don't underestimate the challenges, the sanctions, the pressure, the weight of war we have on our shoulders. So we are not in easy situation, but there is huge solidarity in our society that is growing. That is absolute support of Putin, and Putin's government begins finally to do the patriotic reforms that we expected many years. So some kind of reforms that should reinforce Russian positions. They were delayed during Putin's early rule, and now he started to do what he supposed to do, was supposed to do earlier. So now I think that expectation from the Putin's rule and the results of its rule, they begin to be more balanced than before. So that gives me the reasons for some prudent optimism, not total optimism, but situation is difficult. I think that we will win in Ukraine sooner or later. Maybe it will take time. I could not say how much time it could take, but we see that Ukrainian regime begins to shatter. Maybe inner problems in Ukraine will facilitate our victory. Maybe some other events, I don't know. I think that conflict between Taiwan and China is inevitable sooner or later, and for sure we are on the China's side. That is a priori sure. I think that situation in Middle East will be very difficult. Maybe there will be full-scale war, maybe not. Here I cannot be certain. So the time will show, but it is quite possible that the serious war starts. But I think that Russia would support all those who share our vision of multipolarity. So, and I think that now, and maybe finally, the West will be not so strong as it likes to show to the world, because there are so many of inner problem in Europe, in United States, and the liberal policy is so catastrophic and brings so many catastrophic results that maybe the West will fall by itself. And I don't think that we would be happy to finish it, maybe to save it from the final destruction. But the only thing we insist that the West should stop to behave himself in the hegemonic way, and to stop to try to save at any price, at the price of the lives of so many people and innocent people, to save their unipolar hegemony. With that we should end, and the West can turn to be the other pole of multipolar world. In this case, they could be considered as partners, maybe as allies, maybe as competitors, but in the context of multipolarity, there will be no hatred toward the West, and we will accept it as it is with its values. But if they keep their values for themselves, maybe we don't share that, but let them to do what they want. That is their civilization, and they are free to do what they want from this civilization. The same from all the other, and I think that is the serious basis of multipolarity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dugin. If you have a last word for our meeting today, and also to our followers.
I could say that now it's time to Islamic intellectuals, Islamic experts, to define your own future. So my appeal to the follower of your channel, so to think freely, independently, and to decolonize your mind. So our appeal is let us together decolonize our mentalities, our educational system, to be what we are without any influence on us. We should have sovereign intellectual elite for each civilization, and I would be very glad to stay in contact with the prominent Islamic intellectuals and continue with them exchange of the ideas, debates, maybe some disagreement, but that is necessary. Criticism, all that is welcome, because the independent mind should be totally open to criticism, to alternative point of view, and not to kill the opponent instead of hear and speak with you.
Of course, it's my honor to keep in touch with you, Professor Aleksandr Dugin. At the end of our meeting with you, I would like to thank you, Aleksandr Dugin, the distinguished philosopher and the advisor for the Russian president. It was my great honor to have you on my channel. We hope to meet you again in another interview. Thank you to you also, our dear followers. Until we meet again, here is Hamzah Alkinani to enrich the mind, not to arouse emotion. Thank you.